show on the road. Hi, I want to welcome everybody. This is the education night for June 2025. The date is June the 26th, 2025. I want to welcome, we don't have any, well, JT is a new member. He's not at his computer right at the moment, but he's a new member. He joined last month. He did join us at the car museum, so he's not, this is his first meeting he's attended. And I'd ask him a question, but he's not there. Anyway, just a few announcements. Go over the assignments real quick. July is still life with lighting, so you can either use a off-camera flash, a LED or some sort of light like that, or if you've got a really great window with a lot of good light coming in, you could use that, but it's got to be something that's been lit from the side or however, just it's got to be lit somehow. August is food photography. September is portrait, a head portrait, tone, black and white tone, which we'll be talking about tonight. And October is light and shadow interplay. Be sure to go to the website and read the description on that so you know what we're looking for. So that's October. For the upcoming education nights, we have black and white fine art with Jennifer King next month. You're gonna love her. She's a great. She's what the heck is fine art? Well, we're gonna find out. August is our annual Peer and Beer on education night. So that Thursday night, the fourth Thursday night of the month, we'll be meeting at the Pier in St. Petersburg, like we have in the last 4 years. And I'll send out details on that a little bit later. September will be the education night will be light painting, and that's going to be done by Chris Nicholson, who is a fantastic night photographer, and he's going to show us light painting basically outside. So it's going to be outdoors fighting. He does a lot of night photography with astrophotography and stuff like that, but this is going to be primarily light painting for outside. And that because we have a assignment in November, which is light painting, so that'll get us prepped for that. We do have an outing set up. If you guys saw my email that I sent out yesterday, I believe it's for July the 19th at the Showman's Museum in Riverview. I thank Karen for finding that for us. She and I went there Saturday to check it out, and it's got a lot of stuff to shoot. There's 2 full floors of sideshow fronts, and there's a bunch of miniatures. I mean, these things are so tiny and they're so detailed, it's crazy. And there's a full carousel in there, a big old Ferris wheel. It's not a huge one, but it fits inside the building. But there's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of details. There's a lot of signs. There's a lot of posters. So there is plenty of things to shoot, and the air conditioning worked. We were there just about 1 o'clock. The air conditioning were working. It was great in there. A little less. The car museum was air conditioned, but it was really humid in there, so it was hard to spend a lot of time in that place. But this place seems to have the air conditioning down pat. So, and there's an elevator to go up to the second floor. And so it's primarily carnival stuff, but there is some circus stuff there as well. And there's a few displays outside of some of the big the trailers that they used when they haul the circus and their carnival around. So there's a little bit on the outside, but it's primarily on the inside. We're going to be meeting there at 3 o'clock on Saturday, the 19th. They're only open from noon to 5, so we decided that it would be better to go later and then go to dinner afterwards rather than try to eat lunch. And we like to sit around and talk, and we would spend half the afternoon at lunch before we went to shoot. So we decided to turn things around and do a 3 o'clock and then go to lunch after or dinner afterwards. Problem with that is I have to make a reservation. Karen and I went to lunch to a place called Tiki Docks Riverview, which is a nice, huge restaurant right on the river. But obviously it's very popular, so I need to make a reservation. So I've heard from some of you, but if there's anybody else that wants to go or is planning on going or think they're going to go, please let me know. I need to know whether you're going to go just to the museum or to the restaurant as well, because I need to let both places know, obviously make a reservation for the number of people that are coming. So please email me and let me know what your plans are as soon as you can. I said till the 3rd, but the sooner I know, the better. The cost to get in is $20. This is a relatively off the kind of beaten path kind of museum, and so they don't have the ability to discount it. So that's the only drawback is it is a straight $20. They don't have any kind of discounts at all. But I think, once you get in there, you'll realize that it's worth the $20 for the time that you spend there. Karen, is there anything else? I think that's it on that. The directions are in the email I sent out yesterday to both the museum and to the restaurant. So all that stuff. But if you have any questions, just email me and let me know, and I will answer your questions. Jim, do you have anything you want to add to the comments tonight?
I've been to that Showman's Museum with a student, and there is a lot of detail stuff that's very fascinating there to photograph. And yeah, I just wrote up today. I'm getting ready to post it. I'm doing fall color autumn in the Smokies in the end of October, and then in November is going to be the Death Valley photo tour as soon as I put my material together for that. I've been so busy since I came back, I haven't even looked at the first picture yet.
Robert, anything to add?
No, I'm going to post in the next meeting another outing, and that was where Sylvia, Jim, and Karen also went past someplace. I can't remember where it was on our last outing that we thought about going to. Can you remember where that was, Jim, McWilliam? Sylvia, either of you two? Karen? We were leaving and we said that, oh, I know where it is. It's a fishing pier area.
Oh, yeah.
What was it?
Can't remember the name of,
I don't
I don't know.
I don't even remember the day.
Yeah. But anyway, it's in the works. So we're gonna scout it out and then see if we can make an outing out of it.
Jim, any hope of having a potluck dinner anytime soon? Now that it's summertime and everybody's stuck inside, would rather be inside than outside.
Actually, yes, because as a matter of fact, this is actually coming up. My slow time starts in July, and I was actually looking at the calendar this afternoon and considering doing that. So yes, within the probably by the end of this weekend, I will have one posted. And if anybody wants to put in the chat any topics, I already have some topics that have been suggested by people. But if anybody else has any suggestions, I'll see what I work out for this. That's what it is. It's potluck.
Yeah, Jim, your sound is not very good tonight. I don't know if your microphone is not working or what. You sound like you're way far away. Just for the new folks, what we're talking about, Jim has been doing a periodically. It's not anything regular. It's just when he has the time. We call it a potluck dinner, and basically we start at 7 o'clock and we run however long. And usually he's got the latest updates from Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever, something he's come across that he wants to share with us, and show some different ways of doing things and stuff like that. So it's not really a club function, it's more a gym function. But obviously he invites everybody from the club to come. There's no charge for it, and it's a great time. It's a Zoom call just like this, and we spend a couple hours at least just finding out about the latest and greatest that's going on in the photography world. So in terms
and
of
all kinds of other stuff. Yeah. How's the audio now?
That's way better.
Better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way better.
Because I was on a Zoom meeting earlier and I got a complaint about these microphones, so I switched these off. But now you guys are hearing them okay on this Zoom. So
that's much better.
These are my normal mics.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that we again another one of those things that started up because of the COVID pandemic. So it's one of the other little benefits from being a club member, as you get to hear about the potluck dinners. Anybody else have any comments or questions before we get started on our program?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is I can't get anybody to respond to me at the airport, and it looks like we've got enough things going to get us into September. So I've I've
Okay,
called
that's fine.
again. They're not very responsive for
Okay,
some.
maybe
for
we'll
not-
try to next year.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. All right. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? All right. So tonight, Robert's going to be our instructor. He's going to be talking about head portraits and converting them from black and white, or toned black and white. So go ahead, Robert. Take it away.
Okay, well, actually, it's going to be a little bit more than just headshot portraits. In fact, I only have one headshot in there, but it's going to be about portraits as well as environmental street photography, plants, and I wanted to make sure it was friendly enough for just about everyone. Brian was in my head by saying, I don't do those sort of things, so I'm not going to listen. So I figured I'd add some more extra.
I didn't know this in advance, and I'm still here.
Uh,
He
yeah,
hasn't
but
started yet, Brian, though.
the whole point is that you guys say that I'm in your head, Brian's in my head, because he told me the last time I showed something he didn't particularly care for it.
I
So,
doubt that.
uh, but anyway, now this whole thing that we're about to do is not so that you'll have so much more to do in the future. It's just simply something to add to your toolbox and allow you other options. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if I can. Oh, by the way, just the setup here is that this should go about an hour, hour and a half. It's going to be interactive. I do not do presentation types of presenting like your people that you pay to come in here. So I'm very interactive, which means that I'll start something, we'll talk about it and have comments and thoughts back and forth. So that's kind of how we're going to proceed. Okay?
Hey, sounds good.
Now, if there is no interaction, then this will take about 20 minutes.
Oh, we got an echo. Everybody turn off your mics.
It's Leon.
Oh, it's Leon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
As
Leon's
I was saying, if there's
he's got two things open. That's what's happening. He's got an iPad and he's got two Zoom windows open. So Leon, shut one of your windows. All right,
but
go
I
ahead,
was saying
Robert.
if there's no interaction, then it'll take about 20 minutes and then we'll be off. Okay. I can go ahead and share screen.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, let's see what we have here. All right. Okay. Let me see if I can get back out of this. And we're going to talk about color gradients. How we get them, grading your image, color grading, and why should we do it? Now, one of the things I know about color grading is that it's usually there to emulate or simulate something from some movie, because most movies that you watch are color graded in some sense, meaning that they want to have a sense of emotion tied to it. So if you looked at something in its standard form, uh, then what you would get in that standard form is an actual regular image. And every time we look at something that's regular, we tend to want to dismiss it as normal. But the moment you color grade something, I hear it all the time. Did you see that movie? The lighting was exquisite. And the lighting was not any different than it ever was, except that it has been color graded. So
Doesn't that
color
also
grading,
make continuity across the whole film, because usually things are shot in different lighting?
they are shot generally, yes, they're shot in different lighting scenarios, but yes, it gives it a continuity. You're right about that. But in photography, we tend to do it as well, especially wedding photographers who send out a bunch of images and they want to sell more, so they will color grade in order to make it appear as though it's something different. So we're going to look at a couple of things about how to color grade inside of Lightroom, as well as color grading inside of Photoshop. And I'm going to make it as simple as possible, along with adding some semblance of advanced forms for those who stay with me. But I will not make this difficult. Hey, here's a good one right here. That's a really good one. Let's see what that looks like. Uh, okay. All right. Let's go down. You never know what you're going to get in these things. I didn't look at this beforehand. I pulled this page up just before we got started in order to show some examples of color grading off the internet. Oh, here we go. This is it. And we see those brown tones there. Are we seeing this?
Yes.
Mhm.
Everyone's seeing it. We're seeing those brown tones. That gives us a sense of something that's different. And oftentimes, as mentioned, we equate that with some form of lighting, but the lighting is all still the same. It's just graded. So let's get into some images as far as what we have in Lightroom here. Let's see if I can switch over to Lightroom. Here we go. All right. Now I have, let's go to our deal here. I have some images here that are, I'm going to walk through one of the ways of that, well, a couple of ways of how we would color grade them. I have an image right here. Let's see if I pull that up, this image. And I've done just a little bit of color grading, but I'm going to take that away and let's start over and take a look at how it's all done. And as I mentioned, I'm going to make this as, let me move a couple of things out of the way on my end. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible.
Some more.
I'm going to develop. And we're going to look at, maybe go ahead and reset this. Okay, there we go. In this particular image, there's a lot of darkness in there. And oftentimes what we want to do, when we have black and white, we want to give it a little bit of depth. And one of the ways of the simplest ways of doing that is going to this tab called color grading. Now, we used to see this tab a long time ago inside of Lightroom, and it was called split toning, but now it's called color grading, which means that we have, when it was split toning, we had two different circles here, a highlight and a shadow, but now we have three, and they've changed the name in it. And by doing so, we have a little bit more control in all three areas of our histogram. Our highlights on the right-hand side, you guys see that up top there?
Yep.
Our shadows on the left-hand side, and our midtones are right here in the middle. So we have control of adding color to those three areas. Now, what I mean by adding color to something, we are not talking about correcting color. We're talking about adding something after we've corrected our color. In other words, you would start off with an image, and this is one that was shot at with Kathy's group. You would start off by correcting the color on this particular image prior to adding a tone to it. So the first thing that you would do again is setting it up by getting a good exposure, good tonal values, as though it was just a regular image. And then on top of that, you would then add your tone. In this case, let's go back to our image here and taking a look at that. Let's tap the letter F. Taking a look at this image, we can add a bit of mood. The image stands on its own. This was shot by a student of mine at Dunedin Fine Arts Center. The woman is just phenomenal as far as capturing moments. That she lives for these moments, and so I asked if I could borrow some of her images because I was so struck by them, and I told her I was going to be toning them. So here we go. Now, in this toning this image, I'm going to tap the letter F again to get out of it. If I look at the shadows in here, in my shadows, I have a bunch of different controls underneath here. If you're familiar with these great. If not, then let's dive into it. On the outside ring here, we have something known as our hue ring, which means it determines the color that will be changed. On the inside here, we have our saturation ring slider, which determines what color and how intense that color will be. Our hue ring, hue, will determine what color we will have. And this happens in the dark areas. If we only have one, you see, it seems to be covering everything, but in the lighter areas, it really isn't. It's actually affecting mostly the shadow areas, which is this area up top here. If I push inward, it's going to desaturate that area. If I push outward, it's going to saturate it. So I'll get that color tone. And already, if we look at this, that's a much different feel than we had before. So tap the letter
Hey,
F.
Robert, can I ask you
If
something?
yeah, sure.
What's that dotted line going through that guy's head?
Dotted line.
On the image.
Yeah.
Looks like the edge of a window or something on the window.
This right
The
here.
reflection.
Yeah.
It's probably a reflection. I have no idea. This is
Oh,
not my
okay.
shot. Yeah.
Okay.
I originally thought it was a mask, but it's not. It's something that's in the photo itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's outline. I like the fact that it is sort of separating one half of the image from the other. I don't purport to change their images. I simply demonstrating what color grading can do. So there we go in the shadow area. Now we also have this highlight area, the bright areas up here. No, let me go back. Let me go back to where these different settings are. We have luminance. Luminance deals with how bright or how dark something is. So in the shadows, we can actually make shadows darker, just same way we do when we have our basic tone here. We can add shadows like so. But what we're doing is adding shadows to with a particular color value. So let's go back to our color grading. So we're adding luminance or brightness or darkness to that particular color value. Now, blending will come back to that. Blending is simply a way of smoothing out a particular tone. Balance is going to be shifting it more toward highlights and away from shadows, or more toward shadows and away from highlights. So we'll deal with that part in a second. But let's go to our second part, which is going to be our highlights. Now, our highlights, generally when you are dealing with color grading, in order to get that sort of cinematic movie look or that different style, we tend to use two colors. And it's usually the opposite of the whichever color we choose in the shadow or highlight. So if we chose blue in the shadows, we're going to turn around 180 degrees and choose the opposite, which I believe is called complementary color,
Yep.
which is going to be opposite in the highlight area. And you'll see right here in this bright area where the actual color will show up. So we see that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have in the highlight area, we have a actual tone. Let's see if we can see it. Now, as far as shifting that toward the shadows or more toward the highlights, you see how the balance is now shifting. We still have some blue in the shadow areas, but we're favoring now the highlights. So in this particular image, we actually really have an entirely different feeling than our straight black and white. Anybody have any thoughts about this?
Why is it? I guess the white spot over on the left-hand side is got no data. That's why it didn't really change that much.
Yes, the color grading does not, it has no way of affecting the whitest area. You'd have to give it a tone in order for it to become somewhat of a color. So that's in any case. So let me tap the letter F and demonstrate what I mean. If I was to take this, let me go to a mask, and I'm going to select right now the luminous range, and I'm going to select this area. Okay. Even though it selected everything else, I'm simply going to target this one area by, first of all, lowering the exposure till I get to a gray. And you see now that there's a color there.
Mhm.
See how that it picked up that yellow.
Yeah.
Now, I'm simply going to intersect this so that it only affects just that one area. And when I say intersect, that's the thing that Brian has trouble with. Yes, Brian, I'm on you because you're in my head, and I love you, and I don't want Alan to have all of the attention. So there's my brush. Simply gonna paint this. You watch the colors go away in this area once I paint. See. All right, now that we have a gray, see that?
Yeah.
Now the color is interacting, or the color, the gradient, no, what did I say? The color gradient is now interacting in that area. When it was white, it wouldn't. So that note to oneself that black and white, the lowest tones in our on a histogram, and the highest tones, there is no interaction with color grading. But once it has a tone, then it will interact. So I'm going to take this away and show you just what I mean. See,
Mhm.
we gave it a tone. And that's one of the ways that you can get away with coloring or toning something if you have blown out highlights. Woo, that's a tip within itself.
Yeah, man.
All right, so there we have those two values. I'm going to go to another image and do something very similar. Here we have, oh my goodness.
There's always one.
There's always one. Now, and I don't think this is an electric bike either.
Yeah, it is. There's a battery right there
Yeah, there's a battery pack
on
on
his
it.
legs.
All right, very good. There's a lady that comes, she's about 96, 97, and she comes to bring her kid, her grandkid, or looks like her great grandkid, and she comes to the school across the street from me every day on an electric bike.
Well, better than her driving, probably.
I swear the lady's 96 years old. Anyway, we take a look at this image and we can say, hey, look, why don't we at first, why don't we bring these white areas down, give us some tone in there. And so I'm going to bring those highlights down. This is where you can cheat. You see there's gray in this area now where there wasn't before.
Yeah, if
So
you notice to
once
start
we-
with, the white triangle was lit up on the histogram on the right side, and he pulled it down to make that go away.
So now that we have that, I can open up the shadows just a little bit, just so that we can have some definition in there. Now that I have some definition between the white and the blacks, I mean in the shadow areas, I can actually, let's see, push those shadows up a little bit more, add some more contrast back into it. Now I can go down to color grading, and let's just say on the highlights, we are going to go with this sort of greenish. And then the opposite of that would be in the shadows, would be about here. And now that's a bit much, granted. But if I push that back in a little bit more toward the center portion, it's not overpowering. I can always change it if I don't like it. I can actually go the opposite way around in this area right here and then go to the highlights of it and push that more toward the warmer side. And that gives it more of that vintage look. Not so much of a vintage in the sense of a sepia look, but the vintage in the sense that it might, without the electric piece showing, this might have been something in Berlin or somewhere of the likes of that in the 30s, 40s, simply by toning this image. All right. So that's cool. All right. Let's look at another one if we can go back. And let's look at something that has to do with a color. And I will find, let's look at this image here. Okay. It's the image that was shot while I was waiting for a workshop to end somewhere else. And this image is very, very flat. But I wanted to tone it to give it some sort of meaning. And let's see what I did as far as the steps are concerned. All right, I'm going to go over here. Here's the final of the toning. Tap the letter F, and that's what we end up with. But let's see how we got there. Tap the letter F again, and I'm going to go over to my history, and let's talk about it. Now, I'll close off the presets. And by the way, as far as presets are concerned, you can take any of these toning and make presets out of them. Create virtual copy. Let me go back to this one. I have to actually go to this one in order to find out what we did. So import. Let's see. I have what I did in here. Okay, so I'll go back and let's go ahead and deal with it. On this particular image, all right, this is DNG, tap the letter R. I think I cropped it. Let's see. Computers always run slow whenever you're presenting.
Yeah, well, Zoom doesn't help it.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah. I was just trying to figure out what I did here to start with. I did crop it. Command Z. All right, and let me open that up because I think I wanted a little bit more there. Yeah. All right, and a little bit more here because I wanted to make sure that this was framed in that area and the birds were clear. So, all right, we'll take that. And then I think from there, I went to, and let's go up top and find out what happened here. All right, got it. Got it. All right, let's turn this off. Let's turn that off, and let's turn this off. And I think we should be back. Yes, yes, yes. We're back to where we were. All right. So I think the first thing I did was on this particular mask, first mask right here, I what did I do with this mask? All right, there is a contrast. All right, I added contrast. I desaturated this image. All right, add a contrast, desaturate it. Let's see what happens when I turn the eyeball off. Okay. So what we're seeing is
Hold on a second, Robert.
apparently I
Jim,
did
Jim,
something
you got a real bad hum coming from your end.
not
Jim?
from my end.
No, it's Jim. Jim's got a really bad hum coming from his end. Perfect.
I don't hear a hum.
Yeah, I hear it. When he turns off his mic, it stops.
Maybe it's what he had for dinner.
Sounds
Is
like a
that Jim
microwave
McWilliam
oven.
or Jim Sykes?
Yeah, Jim Sykes. Yeah, it was Jim Sykes had a hum.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Robert.
So in this particular image, I added some contrast to the water. That's pretty much what I did there. All right, now this next one, let's see what we did here. I'll turn that on. And I added Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, let's look at the mask on this one. Okay, and in this mask on this particular image right here, I added a little more contrast to the sky, and I added no saturation, just more contrast to the sky. That doesn't make any sense.
Increase the temperature.
But I increased it to okay. All right, the temperature. All right, there. Thank you very much. Let's bring the temperature back and see what we have here. And I think that's the first part of color grading that we did. Let me turn off the mask. The mask is turned off. And by the way, as far as the mask is concerned, white on black. This is our mask. So the white is the part that's being affected the most. The other parts are not being affected. The gray is not being affected, but the white portion is being affected the most. And I think I have an intersect in there as well. So do have a color range and an intersect. So let's take a look back out of that and go back to the mask. And it was mentioned that I did do a temperature increase in that mask. There you go.
Increase the tint.
Yep. And I increased the tint as well. And by the way, an equal amount of yellow and magenta will equal red. That's why you have a red tone in there. If I add just the yellow by itself, you get yellow, but when you add magenta along with it, you're going to get red. Those two mixtures will give you more of a red tone. So that's what we have there in order to tone this. So we're toning this against the blue in the water, the red in the sky, and then we're pulling it all together with a what I like to call a radial mask. And that radial mask sort of darkens it down so that we just have this item showing. So
Robert, quick
that's what
question.
we get. Yeah.
Quick question. You're actually adjusting the color tone within the mask that you have highlighted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Now, there you go. And that's what we end up with.
And so you do this because you're basically using, you don't want to color tone the whole thing the same way, right? Or what?
No, yeah. This is what I'm introducing is other ways to tone your image.
Oh, okay.
All right. We started off with the color wheel. I mean the color grading at the bottom, and then we're going up to some other ways of making the image different than its original image by adding color into it. And I'm adding color into the sky and opposing color into the water. So to create color contrast. And it's a subtle way of doing it, but it's still being done.
I have a question, Robert. And is
I
my
have three
audio better
answers.
now?
We can still hear, I can still hear it a little bit. It's not as bad.
Okay, I turned off the ceiling fan. I don't know if the mics are picking that up or not. But in any case, with the colors you were picking, is it important that on the color wheel that you were going 180 degrees and also 90 degrees with the colors you were picking?
The colors I'm picking, not for this particular shot, but if you're referring to this one, if it can come up, then I'm going 180 degrees.
Yeah, I also noticed that you chose 90 degrees and didn't know if you wanted to mention anything about the 180 and the 90 on the color wheel.
Not really. The reason why I don't want to mention too many of those things is we start getting to this point about analogous versus harmonious versus all the other forms. And when we start talking about those particular forms of color grading, then I start losing people.
Yeah, I noticed
I'm already losing.
I noticed you stuck with the two most basic.
Right, absolutely, and but you're right. I can actually let's see if I go to my midtones, I could actually add a what do I have in here? That one across, so and I can actually add something in the midtone area, like about right there. So in my shadows, I can go with a deep blue, and I can make that shadows a little darker. I can go in the middle value and go with that sort of greenish. And then in my highlights, I can go a little bit more warm, like so. And then I can bring the luminance range up on that side in order to favor more of the bright tone here. And in my middle value, that's right here, this green, which is about, what is it, about 45 degrees, 50 degrees difference. I can actually increase or decrease those middle values. So there, what I'm getting at is that I want you to play with this sort of thing without getting too scientific, because if you do like it, there is an actual scientific method that Adobe has that will allow you to color grade. I mean, not allow you to color grade, but let's see. I was looking for. I don't have it. Let me put it in real quick. It's called color dot Adobe create wheel. Let's see if that one's it. Yes, yes. And you can go analogous, monochromatic. It will find colors for you that work. Triad, these colors, it'll show you these colors that will work. And what was the other one? Split complementary. So that gets it gets a little technical. And so I tend, and you can also, before I mentioned it gets a little technical, you can drop an image in here and it'll tell you what the colors are. So if you want to get a little bit more into that, we can do that at a different time. But right now, I'm just introducing the quick basics of it, if that's okay.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look at what was done to this image. All right, I wanted in this particular shot, this was shot, as I mentioned, with Kathy's group, and I wanted this to have a very, very night feel to it. And I figure if you're going to be shooting Halloween type stuff in the middle of the day, you might as well give it that, that late night feel. Color grading. So there you go. Same thing happened with this other image. And let's see if, oh gosh, I don't have it. But it's the same sort of thing. So that late night feel.
Did you add the moon? Did you add the moon
Oh, absolutely.
and the stars?
Yeah, I had the moon and the stars. You're right. Let me go with this one thing, library. Give me a second there and go to all photographs. If I can go to all photographs. And let's take a look at this one. And tap the letter F. So that's what we had initially. And I just, even though I shot it, I did not want the feeling of daylight. So tap the letter F again, and then we go back here to, I believe it's this one, and tap the letter F again. And there you go.
Those wings come from, Robert?
Whoever that person is that brought them. It wasn't from me.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
Kathy has a group of people that have all kinds of costumes. So
So generally when I go to these things, I go to help out. I mean, if anyone needs any help. But at this particular time, this person was wandering around and nobody was photographing them. I said, well, if no one needs my help, let me go ahead and do something. And then when I saw the two of them, I said, okay, I know what this is going to look like. I know that I'm going to color grade or color tone this image. Already, I knew it in the moment I saw it. So, all right, let's go back to G. And let's look at a color image. And I want to look at this image right here. All right, a simple flower. And I think I photographed this on one of our photo camp outings. And so one of the things I did, I like the petals, these stamens or stamens. I like that. And I wanted to make sure that this sort of stood out. And in that, I actually did this. And that's all color grading.
Mhm. That looks awesome.
And it gives it somewhat of a 3D sense to it. Now, we can walk through what was done here if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Please do.
Yep.
Oh, I did hear, please do. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's see what we have. Let me tap the letter D, D for develop, and let's see what we did over here. In the first, let's get to our import and our history. We did something, I think. Let's look at this note right here.
Two.
I'm sorry, say again. I heard someone say something. Did I lose audio?
I think it was somebody just making, there was noise in the background. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let's see what I did here in this image. I think, okay. All right. I isolated this through color range. All right. In the color range, I gave it some contrast. Okay, great. And in this mask here, what did I do? I gave that some contrast. I'm trying to figure out what I did here. I know I added some color somewhere.
Yeah, in the second one, I think. No, the first one.
In the second one?
First one. The first one, was there color? No.
Yeah, the first one should have had color in it. Now, temperature.
No.
Let's see. I think when I transferred, I must have lost some information because I transferred and all I have is import.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did lose some information, but let's go with one that's not, and I'll show you just sort of how I do it. All right, this one is very, very plain. All right, great. Now, what I want to do is I want to select those pink items. And what I could do now is I can go into, let's say, color range. And in that color range, I am going to select that color. And there it is. It's selected. From that, I want to give it a color. And that color that I want to give it is going to be, and let me change this back over to our color overlay. Okay, great. So it's highlighted with that same color. I want to give it a color that's a little different than the color that you see it right there, that I've given it a different, in fact, I can move this around and give it, it's going to take a second, an even different color. So you see how this is working. I'm going to go back over to this magenta side over here because I like that one. And then from this color range, I'm going to take the mask, duplicate, and invert it. Now I have the background. In that background, I'm going to take that color and actually give it some blue. You see, I'm toning it right now. And if I'm going to give something some blueness or some coolness, I'm going to accentuate that with exposure. Now, when I accentuate exposure, I'm not sure if you can see it, but this color should our main flower color should be popping about now. Is that showing up on your screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm taking that value down. I'm giving it a little bit of blue, the opposite of what's happening right here. And then from that particular point, I want to accentuate each of these um, little whatever they are called. I'm not the flower person, but I want to accentuate that so that we can hold you into the photograph. And so I'm going to do that by adding a small radial gradient. And I'm going to add it to the first one right here. That first one. From that, I'll bring up the exposure like so, just so it sort of glows. It sort of draws your attention to that center section. From that, I'll simply start adding another one. And that means I'll do it here. Same thing. Add one right about here. I don't want to add them to all of them, but just add another one, a radial gradient. And I like radials because they tend to feather a lot more smoothly than just about anything else. And then one more down to this one. I'll add another radial gradient and I'll add it to this. Now, I tend to like dealing with the whole picture instead of just part of a picture. Now, let me add just a little bit to that one, but I'm going to do it with a brush. And in this brush, I'm going to take my flow down to about 50%. And that way I can actually build it so that it's not as bright as the other ones. So it's just a little bit there. Okay. And because I've done that, I can now raise or lower at will. Now, because I've done that portion, what I'll do now is crop the image. I tend to not crop until near the end of an image. And I will actually crop it like so. I'll take off the mask, the piece, crop it to about right in there, about there. And I want you to note this portion down here. I need that, but I don't need it to be that bright. Enter and or return at another, because that showed up, add another linear gradient just to this portion down here. And I will add I'll lower the exposure, the highlights, the bright portion of it to get that little gray in there. And then I'll add some green, add a little bit of blue in this area, and then lower the exposure. Lower it a little bit more. There you go. So that it matches the color scheme that's in there. And see, I have a little bit of these highlights showing up in this area. So, and then to bring it home, I'll go down to my, what do you call it? My color grading. And because I've done all the color correction, and in the bright areas, let's go to my three-wheel deal. In my shadow areas, I'm going to make it a little bluer down. There you go. That's it right there. And then in my highlights, just give it just the opposite, just slightly, not much, but just the opposite. in there in the highlights. About that much. And then to bring it on home, to count, I generally will add my radial, and my radial will highlight the main image, which is over here, smaller, that area right there, invert it so that I'm getting the outside of it. And in that inversion, there we go. We should be able to bring it home like so. And there we have our color grading. Tap the letter F, and there we have it. If it comes up this week, next week, sometime. This month.
This month, yeah, very slow.
This month. It's slow. I'm telling you, I don't know why it does that. Every time I do a presentation, it comes up very slowly.
Because you did so many
Shy.
changes to it.
We can
Well,
get a
I probably need to.
Robert, while we're waiting, for exhibition purposes, because we're adding so much into the image, would this be considered altered reality?
I don't quite think it would. If the assignment is toning, the assignment is what do you call color grading, this would be, this would fall right in line with it.
But even in general, even if it wasn't the assignment, I still think it's artistically, it's not really, you're not really taking anything away or putting anything in drastically. You're just changing the color, so it still would be considered not AR, not all in reality.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not altered reality.
Yeah,
We're
I
just simply
agree.
changing. Let me crop this piece. I'm not liking this piece in the back here.
Yeah. Because if we use that as a criteria, every black and white image submitted would have to be indicated as altered reality.
Yeah.
Right. That's because black and white is not an actual color.
Yeah, nothing from the scene has been subtracted or added.
Drastically. You can, if there was a stick, like there's a stick down at the bottom, you can remove the stick and stuff like that. That would be fine. But if you're adding something, or that's when you start, or compositing, that's when it becomes a altered reality.
Exactly. Mostly about adding something that was never there to start with.
Now back to this color grading. I can actually, I put it in the blue, and if I put it in the green area in the background, you see how it changes it, gives it much more of a realistic visual.
Mhm.
So what you're doing is you're saying that in color grading, you're sort of making a style statement over something that was originally that.
Right.
Yeah, very ordinary into something quite extraordinary.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right. Now, I'm gonna go over to this image over here. I did something similar. This is one of the things that we did when we were talking about an artist. This is Jim's friend, and one of the things that I do whenever I'm doing some sort of color grading is I will actually take the saturation of an image down. In other words, before I start the color grading, and the color grading is actually here, I should be able to turn this off. How do you turn this off? I know that that's one way to take it out, but how do you turn this off?
You turn it off. It's off.
I remember when we took these pictures.
Yes. Yeah, Jim had it, and we were talking about what was it? Environmental lighting?
Environmental portrait.
Is that what it was, Jim?
Yeah.
Environmental portrait.
Environmental portraiture.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
That's right. So generally, whenever I start and I know that I'm going to be doing some sort of color grading, one of the first things I do is I desaturate it to about 50%. If we put the color back, you see how the color is intense? I mean, it's not really intense, it's sort of natural. But one of the things that I do whenever I start the color grading, I mentioned, is I desaturate it. And the reason why I do that, I like to put color not on top of color. I like to put color in more of a muted palette. So I'll bring the saturation down like so. And then from that, I'll begin to add. And let's see what we have here. All right, that's his face. I think I probably brightened that up a little bit. Yes, I did brighten it up. And then you see this corner right here? This mask. I think I brought that down. Yeah, oh, okay. I added a color. Okay, we're going into the next phase of it. And that is to actually add a color in color grading. Now, in order to illustrate what's done here, I'm going to do it to the opposite side by adding a linear gradient. And I'm going to just draw out a linear gradient like so. There it is. Down here below saturation is a color box. And in that color box, I can introduce a color. Once I introduce a color, you see how that color is now inside our linear gradient. So, and by the way, if I go up on that color, the color becomes more saturated. If I go down on that color, it becomes less saturated. So to the point where it doesn't exist anymore if to that gradient. I'm going to actually pull it up just a little bit so that we can see it. All right, so it looks normal. But if I wanted to saturate that area, I would actually push it up. Going left to right is changing the hue. There's a hue button right here. And you notice we went up and down on the saturation, but there's a hue button. If I go to the left by clicking and dragging, it changes that hue, which means it's changing the color. So, and that color will catch up with itself. But that's what's happening up here. I'm giving it a color tone. I'm going to delete this mask that we're dealing with right now. Mask number, which number is it?
One at the top.
Oh, it's at the top. Okay. I'm going to delete this mask. Delete mask 6. All right. And then we're going to look at the next mask. And that is going to be, all right. Oh, that's our second mask. All right, now let's look at our third mask, and that is from that lower corner there. And I believe, yes, I not only, I think in this particular mask that we're dealing with right there, I not only desaturated it, but I lowered the exposure as well. And I made it blacker in order to add the contrast so that we see inside the face. I did not want this bottom area right here to be significant because I wanted this part of his face to actually tell the story. Now, having said that, I also need to take care of this light up here. And we're going to do that with our next mask. I'm going to turn that on and see what we get. There we go. We get that darkening. So in this case, I brought the exposure down so that we can have a little more definition in this area. But at the same time, you see that it brought him down, his face. And let's see what we did with the next one. Okay, we brought it down even more. Actually, we brought it down even more. And then we brought back his face in this image. And then I think that is it. And we tap the letter F. And that's what we have as far as color grading. So color grading is done with the color block in this one. So I'll tap the letter F to get out of that one. Let me do something that was recent. I was up in Canada just a few weeks ago, and I was scouting out a place to photograph these wires right here. Tap the letter F, and hopefully it'll show up. at some point, but I was there to photograph those wires, what do you call those things?
Power lines.
Power lines. I'm fascinated with power lines. I don't know why, but I am very fascinated with it. I'm doing a series of shots out west where I just photograph power lines.
Did you
And
hear them
in
make any
doing,
noise when they jumped?
they do make noise, yes. You hear them humming.
Have you ever seen the visual test with the jumping power lines?
No, I have
Oh,
not.
look it up. This picture looks just like the visual test.
Okay. All right. So in this, as I am on this road here, this road goes forever, and we thought that we were on the only people on this road until this truck starts coming. Starts coming toward us, and I'm not one to miss an opportunity to get smoke, in a photograph. So I made a couple of shots of it, and the guy, he's typical Canadian as opposed to American. When he went past me, he waved, and I was expecting him to shoot a bird at me for photographing him, but he waved, and I thought it was kind of cute. And that because I at that point when he went right past me, I was going to say, "Could you turn around and go back and do it again?" But when I shot this, I was only shooting for the smoke.
Yeah, I have camera club meeting. Hey, Aiden, can
Go ahead. I muted her.
Okay. All right. So when I'm shooting this, I did not notice this bright portion up here because I did want to include the power lines in this structure because that was out. I was there scouting that so to find out when I could come back to photograph this line down here in the evening. So that was my purpose. But the truck, with the little smoke made it really nice for me. So in that, I'm going to tap the letter F to get out of that. I'm going to go to, let's see if I can get to, I can't get back to the original. Oh man, I hate that. Um, I can't because I brought them over as DNGs as opposed to bringing them over the original image, and that's where I messed up. I do have them. It's just another deal. But the point I was making on this particular image, and I probably can do it. In fact, if I do this, yes, yes, yes.
Mask roll.
Now, how do we turn all the mask off?
The top.
At the top?
Top left. Right there. That eyeball. There you go. They're off.
Okay.
It just takes.
All right, there you go.
There you go.
Right. So I said, I really wanted this to have that cool feeling in the sky and and that sort of warm smoke coming out of it. So I think that let's see if it comes back. There you go. So I wanted the smoke in the truck to stand out. I also wanted this portion to tie these two pieces together. So that was lighting. Let's go through the mask if you guys don't mind. I don't want to bore you, but I do want to go through the mask. So I'm going to start turning each one of these off and sort of go through them. At this point, this is where you guys go, gosh, I want to take a break and go pee or something while he's doing this. Because as Jim McWilliam would say, I need the rest of my life back.
You missed a couple. I think if you turn them all off, you can bring them back on one at a time. At the top.
Yeah, but how do I turn them all off at once?
No, the one at the top.
This one only temporarily turns them off.
I thought it turns off
It's
all
a
of them.
temporary thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a temporary thing. I tried that earlier.
Okay. Well, you missed
All
a
right,
couple. You
so-
missed number 14 and 12 and 10.
12, okay, and 14.
And 10.
And 10? All right. Okay. So here we are. And by the way, I did add a little extra smoke to this right here using dehaze. So I drew it in with a brush using dehaze. And if I turn that on,
And it's
should
actually
be able to
hazing,
see.
not dehazing when you do that.
Yeah, and by using that dehaze, you're using it in the negative manner. And I believe that's what I did. Yes, dehaze minus 14. But let's go back to the actual shot at the bottom. Let's see where we start. We start by masking the sky.
The top of
There you go. We're masking the sky and the smoke. So we're bringing those values up. And then we go on to do, what do we mask here? I don't know, but let's go to the next one and see what happens there. And this one I know of to be the middle part of the sky. So yeah, this is painfully slow. So I'll get to the part where, let's see what we have here. Let's see what this is doing. Oh, I know what this is doing. This is adding these lines. I added some lines in order to add some depth to this. But when it gets down to it, let me turn off all this because this is taking forever on my slow computer. I'm not like Jim, so don't compare me. And turn off some more. I think all of these are on now. And get all those on.
Still on that second mask or third mask. It's weird.
Yeah, the computer is just running really, really slow now. And it would do this on this particular day.
Of course.
And let me turn off the mask. There you go. All right. It should go back to normal in a second here. But besides that, those are all the ways I wanted to show you that I do masking as well as color grading inside of Lightroom. I just want to take a moment to show you one more inside of Lightroom, just an image, not necessarily the actual masking that I did on something that also was in Canada just recently, and that was this pano shot. If I can get that to come up, and I'm going to do it a different way this time. I'm going to do Tab key.
There's the family
and the Shift tab. There you go, like that. And that's a pano doing color grading. So, shot of the family and a pano color grading. All right, let's get out of this. Tab key, Shift tab, and I should get back all my goodies. There you go, good. And then for a brief moment, we are going to go into Photoshop and see how to do some of this same thing rather quickly. And we're going to be using what is known as the gradient map. Like, I'm going to send an image or two over to Lightroom, not Lightroom, Photoshop. Let's see if I could send another image over, 2 images over. See, almost there, almost there, almost there, almost there, almost there. What do we have? Okay, we're gonna send that one and this one. So I should have 2 images. Okay, 3, 4. Send those over. And then let's go to tap letter G. And in G, I will go photo, top menu item, and edit in Adobe Photoshop. And I want to edit a copy with Lightroom. And then it's going to send these over. Any thoughts so far about this? Is it okay for you guys? Is it working? Is it like something you could do, something you're interested in, or Robert, get the hell out of here and quit wasting our time.
Looks interesting to me.
Okay.
You've led me to a good topic for the next potluck with with Brian in my head.
Oh.
I'll show you, Brian. Since Robert is going to show gradient maps, I'll show you my real super quick, down and dirty way that I color grade landscapes using gradient maps.
Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at let me look at black and white, an easy one first. See if we can get this one. Now that's going to be one. Okay, let's look at this one right here. Yes. Okay. Uh, in this particular shot right here, I want to make sure that we have some detail in the shadow area, but we're gonna treat it just as we see it. Now, what I just said makes no freaking sense at all. But I want you to introduce you to this thing called the gradient map. And it's not the gradient right here. It's all the way down the bottom. It's called the gradient map. You guys have seen it, and that's what it does. When it comes in, it's like, what the hell is this? Now, it is a way of mapping a set of tones to a particular image. In this case, let me flip this around to that portion. I'm going to put this over here, this black and white over to the default, and I will tap the letter D. Okay, D. All right, that's the default. And over here, I am going to click on this gradient map. I'm going to click the very first one up here, the preset, foreground to background. And you see how that is a negative. Now, what you want to do, the reason why I did it this way is because if it comes in like this, what you really want to do is make sure that your foreground to background is swapped. Let me get out of this, cancel that, and I'm going to swap this. Now I'm going to click on this particular this grading set, and I'm going to click on the foreground to background, and that's what you get. And what you're going to get here is a mapping of contrast. But we don't want a contrast. We want to color grade this. And one of the things that I want you to do, once you get this gradient map in, just like this, you get this map up, there's going to be a set of folders here. And what I want you to do is I want you to scroll down till you see something that says neutrals, pastels, and orange.
You passed
Which
it.
one? No, I actually didn't.
Oh.
I did not pass it because it's not there. Because I want to import, I believe that's what it is. No, I don't want to import. I'm going to cancel. I want to, which one am I looking for? Give me a second. It was on my other computer, but not on this one. I'm looking for the legacy.
It's not on there.
Yeah, it's not on here. It's oh, wait a minute. I know how to get to it. Up here, the little cog. You want to append or import gradients. Let's see if that import gradient. That's not going to be it. Let me get out of that. And I want to not import. I want to append default gradients. Okay. I want to import. What did I say? Import. No, I don't want to import. I'm sorry, folk. I have this on my other computer, but I'm not getting it on this one. Right here, I want to
do large list.
Let me do a small list first.
Mm.
Okay, that gives me the what each one of these colors are. But it kind of doesn't matter in this case. All right. let's just take any one of these particular deals. We're talking about black and white. There you go. I have that. That looks like crap, correct? Yes. All right. Now, one of the things you want to do, one of the first things you want to do after you do this, you click OK. You want to change this blend mode right here from normal to soft light.
Hmm.
And then you want to lower the opacity. There you go. Now you say, okay, I don't want red and blue in my deal. I want a different color. If I click on this gradient map, you'll see this particular portion, these two stops right here, these two stops. This stop on the left controls your shadows. The stop on the right controls your highlights. If I click on that stop, I'll get a color. Click on that color, I can actually change that to any color I want. Let's put it in the blue range, and you see how now we have that blue value. Again, less saturated, more saturated. All right, I'm going to get that darker blue, and I'll click OK to that. On the other side of this, I'll click on this particular one, change that, and I want let's go with this orange, and click OK to that. And click OK. And what happened to my colors? Why didn't my colors stick? Blue and teal. Okay, click OK to that. And OK. Let's turn this off and on. Okay, I got the blue in there, but I need more of the highlights in there. So let's go. Oh, I know what it is. All right. All right, I think I know what it is. That's my blue, and where's my warm? What am I doing wrong here? I'm gonna go to overlay and see where the greens are. Oh, that's because it's in the midtones. That's why. That's why. Let's give it a different color. There we go. All right, now let's lower that. Let's lower that value.
Robert, you're doing
And
all this on the same layer. You don't have to create different layers.
yeah, this is on. I created a adjustment layer. This is all in an adjustment layer. So there you go. Now in this particular, it doesn't matter which one you pick, and I seriously mean it does not matter. I can change colors to anything I want. And then what I mean by that, I can go to blue. You see how it goes to blue there. I can take this stop in the middle and I can actually get rid of it by dragging it down. And this orange, there we go. Now, I need that to go to the highlights, but I need more there we go. Okay. Need less than that. And I know what's happening. This color is too rich. It needs to be a little lighter. I am not seeing why it's not getting there, but it got there earlier when I did this test. Let's favor this side over here. And all I get is blue. All right. Well,
There's the orange.
now it's orange. Okay. Finally got there. Anyway, with this color gradient, you could do it so that in the gradient map, you just add your 2 colors or 3 colors or however many colors you want in order to get it that way. But I'm going to go, that's one way. And I didn't do so well in that, so I'm going to go a different way. And a different way, I'm going to turn this off, go back down to my background, go to my adjustment layer. I'm going to go to solid color. And in this case, I'm going to put in a blue. You can put it in any color. Put in that green and click OK to that. Change the blend mode. from normal to color. Okay. All right. Here's the part where it gets advanced. The whole shade of this is that color. Now, all I want to do now, I'm going to double click in this area over here on the right, and I'll get this thing called blend mode. And by the way, it is not as scary as it looks. The part we're going to do with the underlying layer, and the underlying layer is this background layer that has black to white. In the underlying layer, we're going to take this little triangle here, and we're going to move it toward the right until the color is no longer in the shadow area. And you see now it's only in the highlights. If I take this and put it back to the left, it's in the shadows. And if I move the one on the right toward the shadows, should take it away out of the highlights. And you see the highlights now do not have that color. Now here's what I want you to do. Alt Option key. If you're on the PC, it's going to be the Alt key. If you're on a Mac, it's going to be the Option key. You're going to hold that down. This splits into two. And you're going to move that back so we have a smooth transition in here. You click OK to that. We're going to add another color, which is going to be down here. Another solid color. And this time we're going to do it an opposite color. Let's say we did a green. Let's do a magenta. Click OK. And we're going to change that to color. And that magenta, we're going to do the same thing. Double click in the gray area. And we're going to move it away from the shadows so that it's only in the highlights. So we're going to take the shadows, move it up like so. And then hold down the Alt Option key, drag it back so we have some sort of a transition. And we have that magenta in the highlights. And I'm going to actually give it a little bit of hardness in there. That's a bit much. And lower the opacity of it. Just a little bit. There you go. So we have color grading there. So you have two ways of doing this: solid color or gradient map. One more, and then I think my hour and a half will be up. I'm going to do the same thing to right here. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to add a hue saturation. And globally, in the saturation, I'm just going to lower it at about 50%. And it should lower at some point here. I don't know what is going on here. Let's lower the saturation all the way then. Okay, there it is. Finally caught up. It's about 8 seconds late. All right, so that's what's happening. It's things about 8 seconds late. All right, now that I've done that, I'm going to do the exact same thing as far as adding a color to it, a color tone, by going to my solid color, very top one, picking a color, and I think I wanted this to have sort of a warm tone. And by the way, you pick your tones over here, over in this area, and then you pick the whichever color you want in this area right here. So pick the color and then pick the particular tone or saturation you want from here. So we're going to go back down to about right in there, just to add a little warmth to it. Click OK. We'll change this from normal to vivid light. And then we're going to lower the opacity. And by the way, that gives a really strong, strong light there. Let's see, about right in there. And there we have our color grade. As simple as that. And in this case, all I have to do is double click on that particular item. I can now have this same image have a bluish tone. Give me 1 second on that. And there I have my blue tone. Very simple. That's vivid light. You can also, one of the three main ones we use is going to be soft light for contrast, overlay for more contrast. It'll take 8 seconds before you see it. Oh, by the way, I want to have 12%. There you go. All right. 27%. Let's go back to overlay. I mean, soft light, which is going to be a little softer than that. And then we have multiply. Those are the ones we use in order to darken the image. And if I take that away, so those are some simple ways of using gradient map that should give your image a little bit of pop, a little bit of style, a little bit of difference over your regular image. And at that point, I will stop sharing my screen.
Way before you do that, ask if there are any questions, guys, before he goes away from you.
I don't ask that. You generally ask that. That's one thing I never ask. Are there any questions?
Well, I'm asking, are there any questions?
I have a question. What is the purpose of doing all this? I came in late. I apologize.
It's just a creative outlet.
I'm sorry?
A creative outlet. Every time you go to a movie, you don't see normal color.
Right.
You see a color grade.
Think of Miami Vice.
Okay.
Oh, that was good. And the other one was CSI Miami. The whole thing was done in orange and green.
Oh, CSI Miami was heavily color graded.
Yeah, heavily. The whole thing.
Yeah, it's a stylistic thing, Diana.
Okay. I'm just like, yeah, as I said, I apologize for coming late, so I'm going to shut up.
I have a question. If you do toning, you have to keep it as one tone to be monochrome, considered monochrome?
No, monochrome was simply the input. Like this is a color image, and I think that one of the ones that's a monochrome image.
Well, that's monochrome, but you could have monochrome because it means one color. So it could be, as long as you only use one color, that it's monochrome.
Okay. But different tones within that color, I would
Right. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I found it interesting that the shadows could be one color and the highlights could be another color. And that gives it quite a bit of pop.
Right. And then it's not monochrome anymore. Now it's, split toning. But yeah, so yeah, and you'll go to some places, Kathy, they consider monochrome black and white. It depends on who you're talking to.
Okay.
Technically, it's one
color, and grayscale would be black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Monochrome is any one color.
Okay.
And
Anybody else?
Yep, you can split tone, tritone, quad tone. You can break it up into a lot of tonal ranges and separate the colors you use in the tonal ranges.
All right.
You don't have to stick to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were doing in Lightroom. That was multi-toning. With the mask, you can do that because you're picking different parts of the image. Any other questions? Come on, people, wake up. This is your chance. Remember, you got an assignment in 2 months. You got to tone a black and basically it's a toned image of a headshot.
I do have a question. Whenever I've done color grading in the past, I have like a bad habit of color grading and then immediately hating the color graded exit like output and then reverting just back to not having any color grading. But when I see other people's color graded images, I like them. I don't know how to get over that.
It's definitely a stylistic thing, and you just may not have that personal style in your, in your brain that makes it happy, makes you happy. So that's part of it. What do you think, Jim, Robert?
Can you go back to that flower, the flower here? And I mean, what was the original on that? Or do I just need to watch the whole lecture?
No, that's the flower.
And I know, but I'm saying that was obviously color graded.
This is not color graded.
That's the original.
Oh, okay. So are you going to color grade that?
No, I color graded one earlier, but
Okay.
in order to color grade this, I can simply take this image and go to an overlay or a soft light, in this case, a soft light, and lower the opacity down to 0 and then kind of bring it back up to give it a color grade.
That's kind of what I was wondering, is why are we doing all of these complicated things when you could do it just with the blending modes?
There is not I have not introduced a complicated thing. I've done several different ways of approaching
Sorry,
it.
Robert. Okay.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is I've done it from the simplest putting in one value to if you wanted to put in more colors, different colors, colors in the highlights, midtones, shadows, then there are ways to do that. But a simple one color, one tone, it's good enough. Because as I turn this off and on, it's fine. Now, when you introduce your own image, you'll say, and I'm not talking about you specifically. You'll say, "Hey, that image looks flat." And then you'll go in and you'll do something to it to make it a little less flat. And then you go in and say, "I need my highlights a little brighter." When all I could do is say, based on what you're saying, is why can't the image just stand alone on when I just shot it, the way I shot it? And you and I and all the rest of the club knows that if you introduce an image straight out of the camera, it will get nowhere.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was using, dodging and burning and using different, but
that doesn't
again, I'm
dodging
sorry.
and burning doesn't change color. It just makes things darker and lighter. Totally different thing.
Okay.
And Diana, you don't have to apologize for anything. I'm more than happy to answer the question.
Well, I mean, it's not fair for me to ask the question because I didn't know what the beginning was. I was late because I had stuff going on, but I'll work it out, and maybe you and I can do it together somewhere.
Diana, he started the conversation saying that this is just something else for your toolbox.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Robert, could you go back
Yes.
to Lightroom and show adding the color range with the mask?
Which one was it?
I don't remember which one you were doing, but I think it was
Color
that
range
one.
with the mask? Okay,
Yes,
let's pick one then.
I think it was that one, or the one.
Let's do this one right here, and we'll see what happens with this one. All right, and you said now, as far as a color range is concerned, I will go to the develop, and in develop, I'll go to my masking tool. And in this masking tool, I will select plus color range. I'll pick this color. Is this okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. I'll pick that color. And in that, as far as adding a color grade to it, I can actually come down here and pick a different color. All right, it's going to take a second for it to come through, but you'll see that that green will actually show up 8 seconds later.
I don't think it's
maybe 12 seconds later.
too light of a green, I think. Try the blue.
No, it should show. Okay, there you go.
There you go. See, it's just
Yeah.
affecting it.
All right.
Defining it.
Now, in this,
If you're putting green on pink, they cancel each other out, right?
yeah, and that's exactly what was happening there. But you know what I can do? I can actually click in here, put it down here, actually put it right here. There you go. I can put it on any color. It'll pick up that color right here. Now, when that's done, in that particular color, I can actually add exposure.
Okay, and it only affects that
Contrast.
color. Yeah, it only affects that color, guys. So it doesn't affect anything
Right.
else. And you can refine it. Show the refinement in where up at the top where the refinement is. So if it selects something
Okay.
that you don't want it to, that's the color right there, and then there's that slider underneath. That's the refinement slider. So you can play with that if it's putting a mask on something you don't want it to pick. This
So
one's
when
pretty, yeah, this one is pretty straightforward because it's all just the flowers pink. But if you had something else that was close to pink out there, that would you use the refinement to get rid of some of that extra stuff.
So when you use that refinement, Lynn, does it work on the color that you selected with the dropper?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
because well, the color is broad, so you can refine it so that it's more specific to it narrows the color down to a certain thing.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Okay, cool. Thank you.
So Robert, how common is it for you to have 10 masks on one image?
That one image you saw of the power lines had like 14.
Yeah, I was trying not to exaggerate. But my question is, how often do you do that with an image?
Oh, very often.
I do too. I have lots of masks on mine.
Yeah,
I started with the mask, and I thought I was getting carried away with like 6 or 7 of them, but
no, I break the image up into each individual part. And for instance, back to, is it Mark who asked that question?
Yes.
I'll click on those right there, and they talk about the refinement of it. And let's take a look at this in the white on black. Now the refinement, now we can see it.
Right.
See, that's the refinement of it. You see how I'm moving the slider? So now you're seeing that piece refined. And if I go back to make a change, for instance, I take the temperature and I make it more gold or less gold. Or I make make it more red or less red. Or I take the saturation down to little or nothing, minus 68, and then put it in my own color. And once I put in that color, come back with my saturation. And there you go. Now I shouldn't be doing blue. I should be doing something like, there you go, something like that in order to, well, it didn't show, but something like that. So you see what's going on?
Yeah. That answered my question, because I saw you doing it and I missed something there, and I wanted to go back and make sure I got it.
Yeah, the problem with the pointers that are so small, it's hard to keep up with where he's pointing if you're not familiar with the module. So,
yeah. Eventually, if you really get carried away with lots of masks, you'll learn that Photoshop and Lightroom handle and manipulate their masks very differently in a lot of cases. And that's why I end up in Photoshop, and then ACR is basically Lightroom within Photoshop. And then I'll have tons of masks, and some of them will be done via Photoshop, some of them will be done via ACR, simply because of the differences in how they each one manipulates and handles the masks.
The greater part about Photoshop is that you can reorder the mask, meaning I can take the mask and put them up and down, left and right, and sideways, whereas Lightroom is sort of limited as to how to move around the mask.
But
At
when
least
you're
that's my understanding.
when you're first learning mask, you don't need all that complication though.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, figure them out on Lightroom, then you can move on to Photoshop.
Right.
Not to oversimplify, but just to a takeaway in my mind is your first step should be to mask the object that you want to work on and then desaturate it before you proceed to do any other color adjustments. Is that correct?
That's one way of doing it. That's if you're going to do it through the mask. If you're going to do it globally, and I mean globally, I'm going to get out of this globally under that where we started with color grading. One of the things I can do is this little thing over here I did not mention, but this one over here, this is a global adjustment. I can actually just give it some tone through for the whole entire piece.
Yeah.
So
that's a single
so
yeah.
Yeah, the single tone, just a single deal.
Monochrome.
For the entire.
That's monochrome. There's your monochrome right there.
Yep. Monochrome can be a color. It's a single color.
And that looks more like your cyanotype. This right here looks more like your sepia. So that's your global. But I can also, decide, okay, I wanted my shadows a little bit blue, or I want the shadows to be a little green, but not that saturated. And I want the highlights to be a little more pinkish. And I want it to favor the shadows, or I wanted to favor the highlights.
Yeah, there's
so either way, you're giving the whole thing a feeling, something that is going to force your viewer to look at it a little more in depth than they would see it otherwise. Now, there is a good photograph by toning or doing all this stuff to it does not make it a better photograph. It just makes someone take a second look at it and then reject you.
Yeah. Any more questions? I think we're done.
Thank you, Robert.
So
Thank you,
before I do that, before I do this, I need to know how to stop sharing the screen. Oh, I just did it. Okay, great. All right, so I have everybody there, so I can see everybody. Well, I appreciate you, all of you, who stayed and stuck with the show here.
We're still seeing your screen.
Oh, by the way,
you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Well, here's something. Here's something I found out. The new Zoom has tabs on it, and if you look up at the top, there's a tab for Robert's screen, and there's a tab for the meeting, and you can just flip over to the meeting tab and leave Robert's screen.
Oh, yeah. They just did an update recently. Yeah.
Just for your info, I don't have that tab because I've got two monitors. So
okay, you have two big monitors, bragger.
It apparently is smart enough to know that the other tab, quote unquote, is on another screen, so it doesn't present.
Well, I went to full screen, and so but I've got the widescreen monitor, so it had enough room, so I didn't see the tab. I could see everything and stuff. But then when I shrunk it down, then it showed the tab. So.
Yeah, I was in a meeting today where there was the meeting on one tab and 4 people had shared screens, including me, and so there were 5 tabs, and you could actually switch between the meeting and all 4 people that were sharing screens simply by what tab you wanted to select in your Zoom program.
Awesome,
well, that's really useful.
Robert, Jim McWilliams remembered the place you were talking about with the fishing.
Yes,
St. John's Pass.
that's it. That's it. St. John's Pass. We spend a few hours there and then go eat.
Yeah.
I gotta eat.
Or go charter fishing.
All right, guys. Anything else?
Thank
you.
Thanks,
Thank
Robert.
Good
Thank
night,
you, Robert.
everybody.
Good night, John Boy.
See you all next month. Have a good 4th of July. Be safe.
Okay.